So today for Gaule's question time, I'm really excited to be speaking with Matt Cortland. Hi, Matt.
Hey there, how are you?
Very good, Matt. Now, I got really excited when I saw the press and the media about my two favorite subjects coming together, Guinness, because I've got a place in Ireland, and AI. And you created the Guinness Index. Could you explain, who those who haven't heard about it, what you did using AI for the Guinness Index?
I noticed that, especially in Ireland, the cost of a pint really varies very widely depending what street you're on and, I mean, what venue you're in. And I decided to try and figure out what the cost of a pint actually was. And I created an AI agent that was a voice agent that called every pub in Ireland that had a phone number, had a chat with the person who answered the phone, and asked a simple question: Can you tell me the cost of a pint of Guinness? And then with that data point, then kind of made an index called the Gindex, where that is logged on a map and people can add to it. And it's kind of like the initial data set, and people can kind of adjust and add as the price changes. And yeah, it's kind of had some interesting insights around how pint pricing changes, and also married that data historically with what pint pricing had been tracked at for, the last 20 years or so.
Yeah, and it was fantastic. Yeah, and I was really excited when I saw that because, and so the stuff I've been doing at AI and that over now the last 2 or 3 years is seeing how AI could do things that would be too costly and too difficult, and
Yeah.
that to do for humans, right? Getting humans to go into pubs and sign up and on an app and then put the price in. Yeah, we could have done it, or humans phoning up the pubs. So you had a voice agent that you
Mhm.
trained and said, as you said, to call up those pubs. So give us a bit of the stats maybe about how many pubs they called, how many calls got answered. What was the reaction to people when they were speaking to an AI out of the blue?
So initially we started with Ireland and we called over 3,000 pubs. About 2,000 of those pubs answered the phone or had a working phone, and we were able to get the price from about 1,000 of the pubs, right? So the kind of the stats whittle down as you go. Generally, people just, I think, just answer the question, right? So we call, just if you were to say, "Hey, do you have a table of two available? Are you serving a roast today?" Right? It's just kind of a simple question. So we just, it was relatively straightforward to get that response. We did the same thing as well then afterward in the UK, and we called almost 30,000 pubs, right, to give a sense of the scale. And we were able to achieve even better results with the second time around from a research standpoint.
Right. Good. Good. And what sort of reaction were you getting from people? Yeah, yeah, I could see that most of the time it was a simple thing, but how do you think people react when they get this sort of call from, were they able to tell? And when they did tell, what sort of interaction did you have with those few that were interacting?
Yeah, so from the data suggested fewer than 4% of people realized they were talking to an AI agent and not a person,
Mm.
right? So that was one of the data points I was trying to collect in that. And of those 4% that realized, most people just still gave the answer. They're kind of bemused. A few people were annoyed, right? But for the most part, people were just kind of just just okay with it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess in the work that I've been doing over the last couple of years, I've seen these sort of use cases, and we've demoed in the workshops we've been doing with the interaction with voice, with the interaction with video, and sort of stuff like that. And going back 2 years ago, certainly it was quite glitchy.
Hmm.
Now I think it's got a lot better, but also I think how we think we will use it would get better.
Hmm.
So, can you think of other use cases now? Because we're looking at things like, if you're a tire company or an automotive company, for me as a customer, a user, for example, if I want new tires for my car, it's God, right, I've got to go to a website or I've got to phone up my local independent garages. Have they got the tires? Have they got one for a Ford Fiesta? So I can see that it could really help people. No, I wouldn't want to call 1,000 tire places, but I might want to call 10 in my area rather than the one or two that I know. So I'm interested in where you think other use cases could be applied in that for this type of voice and AI.
Yeah, I mean, so what you're describing there is kind of like how ChatGPT has agent mode, right? You can give it a task and it goes and tries to find answers. And what voice is just another like tool in the tool belt of an agent to be able to get an answer for research, for pricing, or for anything you want to know, for reservations. I mean, really, voice is a very untapped area from an AI perspective, because as you said, it hasn't been as developed until recently with like
Mm.
the advent of 11 Labs and other voice AI companies. So from a research standpoint, right, hard to get data points, this is really good for because I mean, as I learned after, I mean, to me, this was kind of an obvious way to go about this, but I'm using AI tooling like 12 to 14 hours a day, right? So yeah, let's just call and get the answer. But
Yeah,
from a traditional research perspective, I think this is relatively novel because this type of scale and insights is like not really been able to achieved without an enormous sum of money
yeah,
or a lot of man hours.
yeah,
And so if you think of like, okay, that cracks open the door. What else? What else can we do there? And where might we be able to find just hard to get information? Um, but yeah, from a personal consumer perspective, right? But also from just a larger business perspective, I think there are a lot of options here.
yeah. And I think we're touching on a point here that a lot of people sort of say, "Oh, but AI is going to do people out of jobs," and there might be particular cases where it does people out of jobs. But I'm more excited by the point you touched on there that the AI potential now to do things that we weren't able to do at a cost or with the human number of hours that we're going to be using gives this sort of augmented opportunity because then you can decide to go to a particular pub or you could decide to get your tires done in a particular location or and whether that's an agent which is a computer talking to a website or whether it's a voice one or it might be some other sort of interaction, it brings us all sorts of new opportunities. So in terms of your more broader things that you do, what sort of things are you working on that are now using this augmented capability from AI?
Yeah, so as an AI engineer, right, I was with the Gindex, I was just trying to build in public, right? You kind of have an idea for something, you show how you made it, what tools you're using, and you make videos and tutorials about it. It's how other people learn, it's about how you learn, right? So this was just one project that I thought was interesting, and I guess other people thought it was interesting
Yeah, yeah,
too. But from a more general perspective, so I work as a like a white glove consultant to go into companies and help them to implement AI tooling and workflows that work for their organization, given whatever it is that they're using already. So, I'm working with a comms agency right now to help them build like an AI first, AI native, like comms and PR agency. I'm building a ticket booking system for an immersive experience company, right? That kind of uses agentic AI in different processes. Uh, Really, like my interests are kind of working on interesting things that I think are that I can really make a difference with, and then also side projects that I think are fun that other people might find to be fun too, that kind of bring insights into what's possible with today's AI.
yeah. And I agree, and I think we're on similar sort of parallel sort of areas because like one of the examples that we've tried is I'm a founding member of an angel investment group. So going back 2, 3 years ago, we said, well, surely AI can read the pitch decks and
Mm.
saves me reading through lots of emails and reading the pitch decks just to find out what's the size of the venture, how much investment they're looking for, have they got the tax incentives that are relevant and sort of stuff like that. AI could do that 2 or 3 years ago. And we then went and tried it with, okay, I've done some background research that AI can do as well, very well now, searching companies' house, doing competitor analysis.
Mm.
And then the audio bit or the video bit, you could get the AI to ask the entrepreneur a bit more information, right? Because you can't expect all that in the deck or the background. It might be, oh, Matt, it's really interesting what you're doing. Tell us a little bit more about what you did in the past, just a bit to build that richer part. And then I think the point I'm getting to is AI could then change the business model because if AI can look at the pitch decks, the AI can do a lot more of that. It lowers the cost from before, where a lot of that research would have been done, and the investment managers wouldn't have bothered investing less than £1 million or £5 million because of all that background work. Now AI can do a lot of that work, and it's more cost effective to invest a lower amount of money and then get your AI to monitor that business, what sales they're doing, what traction they're getting, and then invest more money as they move through the process. So I think it's really interesting for people now in lots of different sectors, whether you're a tire business, a pub, or whatever, to think, where can I use AI to improve my current processes, do things I couldn't do before, like the Guinness Index, but also then changing the business model in a sector. So are you excited or seeing those types of things as well with organizations now could see new opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. What you described is in order to have that mindset, you have to have like a peek into what's possible, right? And it's a little bit overwhelming for organizations that aren't using AI because, I mean, honestly, the landscape shifts so quickly and there's so many things coming to market where, like, how do you get started? But once you realize, okay, let me sit down from a baseline from a research perspective, let me build context, explain what my business does, how it does, what metrics we use, what industry we're in, feed in um, our P&L, feed in any as many inputs as possible, and then give Claude, right? Claude Code an open-ended research task and say, okay, based on everything you know about this and your expertise as a analyst, how do you think that these things can be changed? How would you advise me, right? And so that base thing from a research perspective is really, really powerful, and it lets you see opportunities and ways of doing things that maybe you just didn't know about or hadn't been exposed to and hadn't thought of yet.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I think I've seen that over the last 2 to 3 years as well. That until you get those wow moments, that's what I've been having over the last 3 years. And when we run these programs, someone said, "Wow, how did it manage to analyze that document? How did it manage to create that image? How could it have that conversation with me?" And then have those insights and that from the background. We get all those sort of wow moments, but until you've had those bit of experiences, it's very difficult to say, well, how do I apply that to my business and that, right? So we've got to help people go on that journey to of learning, right?
Yeah, I mean, and I think that APIs are the key to like agentic AI, right? Having data sets that have APIs that are like input, like so an AI can plug in to a data set. For Company's House, for example, is a great example. It's a great API. You can get demographic information, you can get information by postcode about a market, you can get information. I mean, the amounts of insights you can get, and then AI is great at like connecting dots across things that maybe you hadn't seen, but it really helps to identify market opportunities, I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's a good point because taking the example we did with the investment sort of pitch decks, yeah, it's going off and find that information that would have taken us too long to do the Google searches and sort of stuff like that on. But also having the context of, like in our case, 10 years worth of previous pitch decks
Yeah.
and knowing where they got to is like, I've been a member for 10 years, but I can't remember that we saw something similar 7 years ago. And Dennis was one of the ones that invested in that business. And now the AI can know that sort of stuff that would have been part of an organization. You would have had to have kept a database, or the people would have had to have remembered and sort of stuff like that. Now
Yeah.
the AI can do that, and then the humans can take over in the next bit, right?
Yeah. And I think the context of training that model for whatever it is that your organization values or like the metrics that you find successful companies have. I mean, it's something that I found and I try to test with anything that I build is like, how do you break it? Right. So, and also how do you make sure that whatever system you make, whatever AI agent you make is not racist, is not homophobic, is not all of these things. You just kind of have to barrage, like get at it and try and make sure that it is aligned with whatever it is that you want it to do very carefully. And I think like the area of AI safety and AI research is critically important for understanding like what's going on underneath the hood a little bit.
Yeah.
Because if you're trusting an AI to like baseline vet investment opportunities, right? Like you need to make sure that it's doing the right thing. And the best way to do that is to give it the best context you can.
Yeah. No, I think those risks and guardrails and that is one of the key parts that we sort of cover within our Henley strategy and implementation sort of program because understanding the basis of of how the system is starting to think,
Mm-hmm.
then how we work with it, I think is so important before you get down to the actual getting your hands on the keyboard or getting your hands in programming things.
Yeah.
So one area now, which I guess you're being impacted or getting the advantage of, is using things like co-work and getting the systems to do the coding and do the developments. Can you give us a bit of an insight in how development now works for you as opposed to how it might have worked 5 years ago or sort of something like that?
Yeah, so it's a major shift with how like software development has changed. That's really rattled a bunch of cages. But now code is no longer really written, it's generated, right? So it's you describe what it is that you want, and that code is made to do that thing. And having a base of understanding of like computer programming is critically important, right? Because you're able to peek under the hood and say, no, don't do it like that. Please do it like this. Or, oh, what if you tried from a problem solving perspective, right? Like, what if you tried this instead of that? So
Yeah,
that foundation is really important and really powerful. But I mean, code is being generated, websites are being generated, apps are being generated. They're not being written in the same way they traditionally have, and that's got software engineers in a bit of a pickle because you hear a lot AI is taking jobs. I think, I heard it recently. I don't know where I heard it from, but I don't, I think people who use AI are taking jobs.
yeah.
AI is a part of that, but really it's everyone having an understanding of how to use these tools because you still need humans. You're always going to need humans in these jobs. But if you're the one who knows how to like, use the AI correctly and well, you have a major advantage.
Yeah. And I think I would draw the parallels there to the investment sort of type scenario that I'm talking about because coding is on the leading edge and has been happening now for a couple of years. But like in my investment example, yes, the people that used to do the Google searches and do the pitch decks or reviews, their work is going to be supplemented and augmented a bit faster than that with the AI. But as you sort of said, it's the investment funds that change their business models and engage with the entrepreneurs, for example, and with the investors to
Hmm.
make sure they can do the real things rather than just spending their time producing reports and producing analysis and producing financial plans. Those things now can be done a lot more efficiently and probably a lot more accurately and with a lot more context, as we've touched on earlier, than what we can do in the, and so it's about augmenting, it's about um, enhancing what people can do to deliver real stuff. I think is really important.
Yeah, I mean the years I spent really becoming very good at Microsoft Excel, right, are still useful because then when I generate a P&L or I generate something, I can look at formulas and I can say, yeah, that's correct. I know what's going on. Or like, oh no, hey, there's an error here, right? So that base of understanding is still very important.
And I've had so many frustrations with Excel, and it didn't quite copy a formula right that you put in sort of somewhere, but it always required that bit of knowledge of sort of saying, no, it can't have a 90% profit margin. It just what why is that? Or what, so there's been an error that the human has done, or now the AI can do a lot faster and whatever because it didn't have the right context. But you do need that understanding. You do need that knowledge to be able to know when it's not right, and then understand the direction it's going. Right, and you can interact with it a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the more interesting observations that I'm seeing like currently, right, as I'm using some of these tools, is I say, okay, hey, please complete this analysis. And it's like, oh, well, no, I can't do that. I don't have access to that tool. And I'm like, oh, no, you do. And it's like, oh, you're right, I do. I'm like, oh, but I can't do that because of this. Like, no, you've done it before, do it again. And it's like, oh, you're right, I'll do it again. So it's almost like my sheer force of will of saying no, you can, is having the AI correct itself to then actually
Yeah,
complete the thing. And it's like, well, why do I have to be as insistent as possible for it to believe that yes, it can do this thing, or
yeah.
it has another way around it. And it's very specific. I don't know.
It is becoming quite weird, and that isn't it? And how we make it human like and interact and that with it. I know when I first started using GPT, I thought, oh God, yeah, it feels like I'm interacting with a person, or whether it's a lower level intern or it's an expert on a particular topic. And I ended up creating names for mine, Grace, Peter, and Tony with an I, because I asked it. I said, "Well, give me three names that are male, female, and are gender neutral." And for a little while, I was starting to think, okay, well, Grace is going to do this, but Tony will do something else. So, have you got into that mode, or are you keeping it arm's length?
A bit like I experimented with OpenClaw, as a lot of people have, right? And you give your claw a fun name. So my claw's name is RuClaw after RuPaul. So I've got RuClaw, and she just does things that I need. But she was eating a lot of API credits, so I've
Yeah, yeah,
parked her for the minute. But yeah, I mean it's all right to anthropomorphize things, right? But it's important to remember always say please and thank you, because when the machines rise up, you want them to say,
yeah,
"Hey,
yeah.
we remember you."
Yeah. Well, I do. It just feels more natural to me to say please and thank you, to be honest, than that when you doing some of these things. But it's fascinating, fascinating. So, Matt, it's been a great pleasure talking with you. Great to get insights in the Guinness Index, but also the broader things that you're doing. So, it'd be good to share the sort of stuff and that with our audience. It'd be great to keep in touch.
No, thanks for having me on and talking about this stuff, and and for logging the cost of a pint at your local in Ireland. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Good. Thanks, Matt.